Welcome back, I'm Jennifer. In my last video, I talked about two types of UK law, criminal law and civil law. I also touched on primary and secondary legislation. Today, I will expand on primary legislation and introduce two principles of EU law and their effect on the role of an international transport manager based in the UK. If you recall, in the last video, I mentioned that UK laws come from two sources: primary legislation and common law. When a new law is proposed, the government publishes what is called a green paper. This green paper lays out a draft for consultation. After the consultation period, the government then publishes a white paper, which is usually amended to take into account the replies to the consultation. The white paper then forms the basis for the proposed new law, known as a bill, which is put before Parliament. The bill is then debated in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, where it can be amended or rejected in its entirety. If a bill is passed by both houses, it must then be given royal assent by the monarch before becoming an act of Parliament. Again, in regard to the two types of law, an example of a criminal act is the Theft Act of 1968, which creates offenses including burglary, robbery, and theft. While an example of a civil act is the Partnership Act of 1980, which creates a set of rules for the relationship between two or more people. Another consideration for UK law is the Welsh Assembly, Scottish Parliament, and Irish Assembly. These have the authority to pass primary legislation that is applicable to their respective countries. Although the UK is no longer a member of the European single market, it is still subject to the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, made on 24th of December 2020. As a transport manager in the UK, you also need to be aware of EU law. The European Commission is the pivotal institution that consults with government departments and interested bodies in the member states. The Commission submits to the European Council proposals for draft regulations or directives. An EU regulation applies to each member state and is binding in its entirety. This means when a member state's domestic law conflicts with the EU regulation, the EU law prevails. An EU directive, on the other hand, is only implemented by a member state if it passes domestic legislation. Thanks for watching. I hope I have helped you understand some more about the legislation around the UK international transport management. There is much more to cover, so subscribe to Zingy Limited's YouTube channel and follow Zingy on LinkedIn. Until next time, have a great week.